Bonjour, good afternoon. Welcome to PLAR Science and also welcome to WASA Distance Education Center. Let me just unmute myself here. Here we go. Okay, just a reminder to all students that you are welcome to join the radio Zoom classes for PLAR Science and PLAR Math. So as you can see now, we're on the third week of Term 2B, and our next class for PLAR Science is on Wednesday, which is May 1st already. So you can see that we're moving along here. Also a reminder to students, Term 2B draws will be happening. WASA will have 2 student draws, one for students who earned a credit and one for students who submit work. So make sure that you're submitting your work to your teacher so that your name or names will be entered into the draw. Students working on more than one course will have their names entered for each subject that they submit work for. Students can still register for independent learning or IL courses at any time, especially if you're needing your last course for your graduation requirement. Make sure you talk to your DEC or your education counselor. Your course must be completed on or before June 13th, 2024. So students can continue to contact me at the office. So you just call the 1-800 number, 667-3703, or you can email me, or you can send me a message on my work Facebook, J. Mercer WASA. My office hours are available from your DEC, and you may also contact me at home. So looking at the course calendar for PLAR Science, you can see we're here on week 3. We are finishing up lesson 1 today, and then we will start with lesson 2. Now lesson 2, biology, it's not a very long lesson, so we will probably finish that this week, so for week 3. And then we will start lesson 3 in week 4. So just make an adjustment there on your course calendar. So remember, that's just a suggested calendar so that you can finish your PLAR Science within the 9 weeks, within the 9-week period. Evaluation or testing. Just a reminder that you have to complete the key questions 1 to 80 of lessons 1 to 5. Once you get an email or a notification from me that you are eligible to write the culminating activity, then you will either receive that from me or from your DEC. Remember, you have to complete the culminating activity in order for you to be granted the equivalent credit. Okay, so that's how your equivalent credits are granted. It's based on the individual assessments. It's an open book test, and all you will need is just the culminating activity itself. You won't need to use you won't need access to internet or Wi-Fi in completing the culminating activity. Once you are submitting work, or once you are ready to submit work, there are options for you to do that. You can have your DEC fax your completed work for you, or you can do it yourself by scanning and emailing to studentwork@nnec.on.ca. Make sure you're CCing it to the teacher that's marking your work. You can also use your Notes app to scan, email it, or you can send a picture through Messenger. This seems to be a popular option. You can either take a picture or you can scan it. Notice if you scan it, you won't have any background image. It just scans your page. So if you're not sure how to do that, just let me know and I can help you with that. Or if you're in Sioux Lookout or within the Sioux Lookout area and you're passing through, you can also stop by the office There's an WASA outdoor mailbox, or you can just knock on the door and we will take your key questions from you, or if you need materials, we will be able to give that to you. If you need extra help, you can go to YouTube and watch classes. So when you go to J. Mercer WASA, you'll be able to watch classes for PLAR Science, PLAR History, and PLAR Geography. If you go to B. Osmond WASA, you'll be able to watch the PLAR English and the PLAR Math videos. So for this term, under playlist PLAR Science 2B, I'm uploading all the videos that I'm doing for PLAR Science for this term. If you're working ahead, so if you're working on lesson 2 to 5 already, you can go to the PLAR Science 1B. All the videos are there for lessons 2 to 5 already. Okay, that's the complete class for PLAR Science for 1B. If you want a flash drive, so if you don't have internet access or Wi-Fi, you can request a USB of classes. You just need a USB port and we will download the classes for you. So notice how it's organized. It will tell you the component. In this case, it's PLAR Science. It'll give you the lesson number, and then it will give you the key questions that are within that class. Okay, so just make sure that you keep that in mind when you're downloading or uploading the classes. Okay, let's look at the last section of lesson 1, astronomy. It says, how do humans survive in space? So this is on page 43. Without water, food, air, space, or shelter, living things die. So in space, what do you think humans will need? If you're following along, again, turn to page 43. Okay, so if you look at what I just wrote here, that without water or food or air or shelter, living things die. In space, it's the same thing. Humans need the same requirements or need. Okay, they will need water, they will need food, air. They will also need shelter. So it's very similar. Okay, they will need all these things to survive in space. So everything that surrounds an organism is called its environment. Air and water are parts of the environment. So are the temperature, air pressure, and food. That's why our environment on Earth is well suited for life, because we have air to breathe, we have food to eat, we have water to drink. The air pressure is just right. In most places, the temperature is never too hot or too cold. The atmosphere blocks out harmful radiation. So in short, we live in a friendly environment. But what about space? Well, the environment in space is not friendly to humans. Okay, there are problems. You could not live in space the same way that you live on Earth, because you don't have air to breathe. There's also no air pressure. The temperature, as we looked at all the different planets, we can see that some of the temperatures are too hot or too cold. No food grows in space, and there is nothing to block out harmful radiation. In space, getting rid of waste is also not so easy. Keeping clean is a problem. On Earth, gravity holds you to the ground. In a moving spacecraft, there is no gravity. Gravity from outer space does pull upon the spacecraft, but the movement of the spacecraft cancels it out. So what you get is what's called zero gravity. And in zero gravity, a person seems to weigh nothing. So just imagine you would float around the spacecraft if you didn't hold on to something. So as you can see, because of all these problems of living in space, astronauts must bring along their own environment. So it has to be like the environment found on Earth. Special clothing and instruments have been designed so that the traveler in space has everything that is needed to stay alive. So you can see a picture on the bottom of that slide. These are astronauts on the International Space Station. So we looked at that from our last class, also known as ISS. Here you can see they're preparing to share a meal. So the quality of their menu contrasts sharply with those of the early space explorers. The meals back then were either semi-liquids, squeezed from a tube, or bite-sized cubes. And you can see that on the next slide here. This is what the food that's what it looked like before. It's in a tube, so you squeeze the food out. Very different now. So everything in space is weightless. It is not possible to eat a regular meal like you do on Earth. The food would float around inside the cabin, and the astronaut would have to chase after the meal. So you can see, as I mentioned, the early astronauts ate soft foods from tubes that looked like a toothpaste tube, so they would then squeeze the food right into their mouths. The space shuttle has a galley where the crew can prepare meals. This galley even has an oven to heat up pre-made foods. Some food is dehydrated, which means that the crew must add water to it. So you can see some pictures here. Whoops. There we go. If you can see that, it says drinking water. That's what he's holding there. This astronaut has let go of his food, so you can see it's floating. And here's the astronauts eating their meal there. So that's inside the spacecraft. So what about outside the spacecraft? Well, an astronaut may not spend all the time in the spacecraft. So some of the time they have to go out or take spacewalks in a pressurized suit. So the spacesuit has air, it has food, and it has water for the astronaut. A rocket backpack allows astronauts to fly in space all by themselves. So you can check that out. That's Chris Hadfield. He is a Canadian astronaut. He's retired. He was born August 29th, 1959, from Sarnia, Ontario. He was a commander and a colonel. Time spent in space, 166 days. So what is it like outside the spacecraft? Well, okay, outer space is an extremely hostile place. If you were to step outside a spacecraft and you weren't wearing a spacesuit, the following things could happen. You could become unconscious within 15 seconds because you won't have any oxygen. Your blood and body fluids could boil and then freeze because there is little or no air pressure. Your tissues, skin, heart, other internal organs could expand because of the boiling fluids. You could face extreme changes in temperature. So for example, in the sunlight temperatures, it might reach to 240 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 120 degrees Celsius, and it could plummet. So it could go down to minus 100 Celsius in the shades. You could see the extreme temperatures, too hot, too cold. You would be exposed to various types of radiation, such as cosmic rays and charged particles that's coming from the sun. You could also be hit by small particles of dust or rock that move at high speeds, or called micrometeoroids, or orbiting debris from satellites or spacecraft. Okay, so you could see that you need to have, just like the astronauts, they would wear pressurized suits when they're outside of the spacecraft. Weightlessness in space. Well, little can be done about weightlessness. So astronauts prepare themselves for this funny feeling. They pilot airplanes to mimic zero gravity. They also practice missions underwater. That way they learn what to expect. Future exploration. Well, some scientists believe that a human mission to Mars, with the possibility of a permanent colony on Mars, is the next step for the space program. The European Space Agency plans to send humans to Mars between 2030 and 2035. In 2007, NASA said they plan to put a person on Mars by 2037. Robotic and scientific robotic missions have shown that Mars has characteristics very similar to Earth, but we know that there are many differences that we still don't understand. So a mission to Mars could provide an opportunity to show that humans can live for long periods of time, maybe even permanently beyond Earth's orbit. Okay, so we have the key questions that we can finish for lesson 1. Okay, key question 23. And we just finished looking at this. What are 2 ways astronauts can prepare for the feeling of weightlessness? So 2 ways. So 2 ways are, and then you just list them out. Again, you don't need to do a search or look elsewhere. It's on your lesson book. Key question 24 says, some people believe that society should build places for people to live in space. Why might people want society to do this? So this one is an opinion piece question. You might not find the answer directly in the book, but based on what you have learned or studied in lesson 1, why might people want society to do this, to build places for people to live in space? So you might start with people may want just fix that. Okay, so people may want society to do this. So what might be one reason why we should have a place for people to live in space? Well, maybe there's overcrowding on Earth, or overpopulated. So that might be a reason. Key question 25, why is it cheaper, okay, to send space probes to other planets instead of sending people? Okay, a lot of the answers I'm getting to this is because it can get closer to taking pictures. Okay, that doesn't answer the question, why is it cheaper? Okay, it's cheaper to send space probes. So we're thinking about costs. from what we learned in lesson 1, we talked about how far it is to go to other planets. Some planets it will take you years to get there. So imagine paying an astronaut, or not even paying the astronaut, but the fact that you can't put a price on human life. So in a sense it is cheaper to send space probes because you don't have to pay the salary, okay, and the time. Key question 26. In your opinion, again, this is your opinion. So in my opinion, so it's your answer. Now the question is human exploration of Mars a good idea? Do you think that's a good idea to explore Mars? We just talked about it on the last section here about future exploration. It says a mission to Mars could provide an opportunity to show that humans can live for long periods of time, maybe even permanently beyond Earth's orbit, or maybe just to test it out. So it's your opinion if you think it's a good idea, or you might say no, I don't think it's a good idea, and you tell me why. So either it is or it isn't, and you have to provide a reason. Okay, so that's the end of lesson 1. So make sure you have key questions, key questions 1 to 26. So end of lesson 1. So you should have completed key questions okay, 1 to 26. And if you're having any problems, make sure that you contact me. Okay, so I want you to get your lesson 2, which is biology. So we're looking at a new topic. Your biology lesson 2 will say lesson 2 in key questions. It will have the same thing as your lesson 1. It will give you the WASA studio number. It would also give you the Bell Express View channel 972. Again, if you go to Bell Express View, that's audio only. You could go to the Zoom link. So if you try to join now, I'm on there now. So 4 to 5 Central Time. And that's Mondays and Wednesdays. There's also the office number, the fax number, my email, my Facebook, and YouTube. You can also go to Google Classroom. Remember, there are 2 codes, one for using the NNEC Schools account, or you can go to Google Classroom. You can use your personal account, and again, there's a different code for that, and it's right there in your book. If you have any problems trying to access Google Classroom, please let me know. Okay, so for lesson 2, we have the set of key questions, and it shows you on page, let me just turn my page here. Okay, it's on page 2. Now when you're looking at that, you will notice that you have 14 key questions altogether for lesson 2. In lesson 1 you had 26, so this one's a bit shorter, so 14 key questions in total. As always, to support questions, these are just for practice, so you can look up the answers at the end of this lesson. You do not need to submit them for marking, but it'll give you an idea if you're on the right track with what you're doing for lesson 2. It's the key questions that you need to fax or email, or you can take a picture of it and send it to Messenger. So what you will learn in lesson 2, keep this in mind. I can explain the role of the cell and its organelles. I can identify the differences between animal and plant cells, and I can describe the process of cell division. So those are the 3 statements or sentences of the learning goals. On pages 3 to 5, it will talk about the cell, so the difference between prokaryotic cells versus eukaryotic cells. Page 6, the parts of a cell. Page 7 to 10, or pages 7 to 10, organelles and their functions. And on page 10, the differences between animal and plant cells. So let's see how far we'll get. Okay, first up is the term organism. So if we look around the environment that we live in, we can see or observe many different types of organisms. So organism just means a living thing made up of one or more cells and able to carry on the activities of life. That just means using energy, growing, reproducing, etc. So examples are trees, flowers, dogs, cat, people, and mushrooms. Okay, these are all organisms. Okay, another word is bacteria. Okay, and bacteria and some molds are so small that they cannot be seen with normal eyesight. You have to use something special so you can see bacteria and molds. Continuing with page 3, we have the word biology. So biology comes from the Greek words bios. So bios means life, and logos meaning the study of. So when you put the 2 parts of the word, biology means it's the study of living organisms. So that's what we're doing here. In this lesson, you'll be looking at one of the many areas of biology, which is the cell and its structure and function. So in order for it to become an organism, you start with a cell, and then you get formation of tissue. The tissues form into organs, and then the organ system, and then you get the organism. So cells are very small. Okay, they are the basic building blocks of all animals and plants. These photographs show cells seen through a microscope. So you can see the cells for the plants, and then cells for humans. So when you look at the smallest building unit of our body, cells, okay, which is made of tissues, then which is made of organs, which is made of the organ system, and then finally you have the organism. So the study of cells is called cell biology, and the cell was discovered by Robert Hooke in 1665. According to the cell theory, so again, this is on page 3, and this is one of your key questions, so make a note of it. Cell theory is a scientific theory that describes the function of cells and their properties. There are 3 main claims of the cell theory. The first claim is that all living organisms are made up of one or more cells. Okay, so any living organism, they are either made up of one or more cells. The second claim is that the cell is the basic unit of structure and organization in organisms. And then finally, cells come from pre-existing cells, so cells that already existed or existing, through the process of cell division. So one idea that you must realize when we're dealing with organisms is they come in a variety of shapes, sizes, and numbers. So we already talked about that cells, according to the cell theory, is that all living organisms are made up of one or more cells. So the first one is unicellular. These are organisms that are made of only one cell. For example, algae, bacteria, plankton. You will need a microscope to see single-celled organisms. Okay, versus the second one are multicellular. These are organisms that are made of more than one cell. So we fall in this area. Humans, okay, are multicellular. Human beings contain more than 10 trillion cells. Okay, we're made up of many cells. 10 trillion cells. So what are the characteristics of organisms? Well, a living unicellular or multicellular organism shows the following characteristics. Okay, they are a particular shape and size. They can show movement. They can reproduce cells or offspring. They can digest food. They can respond to a stimulus. So stimulus could be light, it could be sound, it could be smell, it could be touch. So these are different types of stimulus. Could be heat. They can also undergo metabolism to store or release energy, and they release waste. So whether they're single-celled or multicellular, they can demonstrate the following characteristics that I just mentioned. The three main jobs of cells is that they make energy, and we need energy for all activities. It's also needed to clean up waste produced while making energy. Cells also make proteins. Proteins do all the work in a cell, so we need lots of them. And cells make more cells, and we need that for growth and for replacing damaged or dead cells. Okay, turn to page 4. We're going to look at prokaryotic cells versus eukaryotic cells. So there are two types of cells, eukaryotic and prokaryotic. So let's look at the characteristics of prokaryotic cells. So if you want to, you can look at the main points I have written here. They don't have a nucleus, they're small and simple. No organelles, are very abundant, means there's lots of them. All prokaryotic cells are unicellular, okay, meaning single-celled or made up of one type. Cells have a sticky capsule. All cells have cell walls. They were the first cells. They live in a wide variety of environments, and all are bacteria. When you look at your book on page 4, this is more detailed. For the characteristics, they have no organized nucleus, so the DNA is clumped in an area, but there is no organized nucleus with a membrane, and we're going to look at that term nucleus in a moment. Prokaryotes do not usually have any organelles. That means no chloroplasts, Really not much at all. They're very small because they don't have all of the normal cell machinery. As always in biology, there are exceptions, but generally prokaryotes are very small compared to other cells. Prokaryotes don't have mitosis or meiosis like other cells, so scientists don't really have a good way of describing how they duplicate, but it's not through normal means. Okay, the other type is eukaryotic. So this type, these cells have a nucleus, a protective membrane around the nucleus, and special structures called organelles. Okay, and organelles just means is a part of a cell that does a specific job, so small organs, so organelles. These have organized nucleus, they have a brain for the cell. They have a discrete area where they keep their DNA. It is also said that they have a true nucleus. Eukaryotic cells have usually have organelles. They might have mitochondria, chloroplast, or some endoplasmic reticulum. They have parts that work to make the cell a self-sufficient organism. So remember, only eukaryotic cells are the only cells that have organelles. It includes everything that's not bacteria. They can be unicellular or multicellular. Although limited in size, okay, eukaryotic cells can get very large. Eukaryotic cells have extra stuff that's going on and extra parts attached. So since they have organelles and organized DNA, they are able to create parts. So one example is the flagellum, which is a tail-like structure to help it move. They could also create cilia, which is little hairs that help scoot the cell through the water. So if we put them side by side, so prokaryotes are on the left, eukaryotes are on the right, and if we put them together and then create a Venn diagram, so a Venn diagram, you have two circles that you overlap, and where it's overlapping is the set of characteristics that are similar to both prokaryotes and eukaryotes. So they both have ribosomes, they have DNA, they have cytoplasm, they have a cell membrane, and some have flagella. So now we can look at the parts of the cell, and we will look at their the definition, meaning what they are, and then we will also look at their function. That means what do they do for the cell. So here we're looking at a single diagram of the typical animal cell. So each cell contains organelles, which are specialized parts of a cell that perform or do a specific function. And the diagram shows the most common organelles that cells of existing organisms usually have. So it shows cytoplasm, cell membrane, mitochondria, nucleus, DNA, endoplasmic reticulum, lysosome, ribosome, and a Golgi apparatus. Okay, so next up we're looking at the cell structure and function. If you're not sure how to pronounce the terms, you can go to this website. If you go to that website, you can type the word, so spelling is important, so you just follow along in your book. When you get to this website, it will show you the word, and you notice the volume icon, which means when you click on the volume icon, turn on your speaker and you will hear how it's pronounced. Okay, so if you're not sure how to say this word, eukaryotic, then you go to that website. It's on your book as well. So you click on it, and then you click on that volume icon. It says listen to eukaryotic pronunciation.
Eukaryotic.
So you hear that, it says eukaryotic. Okay, that's how you would go for each of the words that you're not sure how to pronounce. So here we have the following that describes the different organelles found in plant and or animal cells and their functions. So all of these are found in your lesson book. The first one is a cell membrane. So the cell membrane controls what materials can go in and out of the cell, and what materials, okay, that's what I said, it can control what's entering and what's leaving the cell. So the cell membrane is a semi-permeable membrane. It keeps some things out and lets some things in. So it's protecting the contents of the cell from the outside world. Okay, so that's the first one, the cell membrane. It's kind of like a bouncer. So it allows who stays in and who goes out. Okay, the next one is cytoplasm. So everything inside of the cell membrane except for the nucleus. So it's a gel-like liquid, mostly made of water. So you can see at the bottom of the slide here, you can see the cytoplasm. It's the area between the cell membrane and the nucleus. It's a gel-like fluid that's constantly moving inside the cell. So why does the cell need it? Well, it allows organelles to move around inside the cell. Also, the fluid helps regulate the cell's temperature and pH level, and it's also found in both plant and animal cells. Okay, the third term is called the nucleus, and the nucleus controls all the cell functions. It acts like our brain that control every job that we do. It's the largest organelle in animal cells, and it also contains the genetic material called DNA. So DNA is the material that carries all the information about how a living thing will look and function. So for example, DNA in humans will determine such things as what color the eyes are and how the lungs work. So each piece of information is carried on a different section of the DNA. It's almost like a blueprint. So these sections are called genes. DNA is short for deoxyribonucleic acid. It is in every cell of every living thing. Next is the nucleolus. So the nucleolus, its main functions is it makes ribosomes. It's the little nucleus. It's a visible darker staining region inside the nucleus. This is where the RNA and ribosomes are made. So that's the main function. So it is to make the small parts or subunits which make up the ribosomes. You can think of them as the construction workers of the cell. Ribosomes. Ribosomes, these are where the proteins are made in the cell. So tiny protein factories that are found floating in the cytoplasm or attached to the ER. So ER is endoplasmic reticulum. Ribosomes read the message that's encoded in the cell's DNA, and then they translate these codes into proteins, hormones, and other structures. So without the ribosomes, the DNA would be useless. They're like a translator, so they translate what the DNA is asking or creating. These are found in both plant and animal cells. Okay, mitochondria. These are important parts of the cell to work properly. They take in food and create energy that the cell needs. So one is a mitochondrion and a plural is mitochondria. So they're the powerhouse of the cell. They can convert energy into useful energy for the cell. So you can see that on the screen. Animal cells that need more energy, for example, muscle cells, they have many mitochondria. Okay, endoplasmic reticulum. So the endoplasmic reticulum has two parts. It has a rough part and a smooth one. Okay, there are canals for movement. It is a collection of tubes that make, package, and transport proteins and fat. Okay, that's their main function. So you can see these are the protein assembly line of the cell. There's the ribosome. Okay, and this is the ER, so endoplasmic reticulum. The smooth ER, they make lipids and removes harmful substances from a cell. Okay, they're like they're responsible for the movement. So that's how these proteins are moving, or fat is moving along in the endoplasmic reticulum. Okay, lysosomes. These are the cleanup crew of the cell. That's their function. They contain chemicals called enzymes that break down large food particles, trash, and even old organelles. Why does the cell need it? Well, without it, the cell would become cluttered with food particles that are too big for the mitochondria, toxic trash, and dead organelles. Okay, so they break down food. Remember, that's their function. And they kill pathogens. These can be found in animal cells only. Okay, next is the Golgi bodies. So Golgi bodies is what's known as the post office of the cell. They receive proteins and other newly formed materials from the endoplasmic reticulum, or ER. They package them and distribute them to other parts of the cell. So why does the cell need it? Well, without it, many proteins would be incomplete or they could be lost. They can be both found in both plant and animal cells. Okay, we won't be able to go through all of the different parts of the cell. We still have the cell wall, chloroplast, and vacuole, so we will continue with that on Wednesday. So for now, make sure that you have up to key question 26 finished. And if you like, you can start with key question 27 and 28. What does the word biology mean? So start with that. Biology means, and then identify the three main claims of cell theory. I went over that. Remember, it's on page, it's the very first page of lesson 2, so page 3, and it says there the main claims of cell theory are, so you're just basically copying what it says there, starting with all living organisms. Okay, just to start you off. Okay, so we'll talk again on Wednesday. Thank you for joining me. Miigwech.